Let's walk through a neat way of editing a video by editing its transcript, that workflow that's kind of magical until it isn't. I'm on CapCut for desktop here, the Windows version, and I've just dropped a single clip onto the main track. I'll stretch the timeline a bit and zoom in so we can see the waveform and the clip lanes more clearly. Then, once I have my clip selected, I look up to the toolbar above the timeline for the button labeled transcript. Clicking that will start the process where CapCut automatically transcribes the audio content for us. Usually this takes a little bit, depending on how long your source clip is. Sometimes it pops up instantly if you've already pre-transcribed it in a previous run, which is certainly convenient. When the transcript loads, you get the whole transcription displayed in a panel on the left side. CapCut also gives you quick options to automatically remove pauses, hesitations, or even repeated words. Those are just simple checkboxes, so you can really pick and choose exactly what you want scrubbed. If you only want to remove those long pauses, just leave pauses checked and uncheck the others for now. Once you're happy with your selections, just hit delete and it will automatically scrub those unwanted elements right out of the clip. Now heads up, this automation is incredibly helpful, but it is definitely not perfect. For pauses, it's basically scanning for silence, so it can miss those short, breathy gaps or cut too aggressively if your microphone has a little noise. Hesitations are tricky because people stop mid-word or might pop their tongue between thoughts, which CapCut sometimes gets confused by. Repetitions can also slip through, as you might repeat a whole phrase and it won't catch every single instance. The auto-delete feature can be a huge time saver, but you should always expect to do a final pass and tidy things up manually. The transcript UI itself has some genuinely useful navigational bits built in. There's a search box. You can type any word and it'll jump right to where that word appears in the audio. Just remember that speech to text isn't flawless, so if the search doesn't find a word, it doesn't necessarily mean you didn't say it. There are also those 3 dots for extra options, one of which toggles the visibility of show deleted text. I always leave that on so I can visually see what exactly I've removed from the timeline. As you skim the transcript, you'll see bracketed timestamps like that indicating short silences detected in the audio. Sometimes those are actually okay to keep, like if you want a really dramatic pause, but often you'll want to delete that half-second gap to tighten the delivery. Clicking and deleting that timestamp segment removes it from the transcript, and CapCut cleanly trims that portion from the clip. One very useful behavior is that if you delete a line or even a word in the transcript, CapCut actually cuts that portion right out of the video on the timeline. It splits the clip and removes the segment, which is incredibly convenient for making quick, text-based edits. You can even delete individual words sometimes. I've clicked on a single filler word like so, and it removed just that one. Other times, CapCut forces you to delete an entire phrase or sentence rather than just single words. So if you're really picky about removing one word but keeping the next one, you might need to use markers or do a little manual trimming. Markers are definitely your friend when you hit these little roadblocks in the text edit. If you want to remember a spot for later fine-tuning, like if CapCut deletes too much, drop a marker right there at that moment. Then you can play through later and address that specific spot with more precision when you have time. Also, when transcript deletion chops words in the middle, you'll often have to nudge edit points by dragging the clip edges so the word tails aren't cut off. Zoom way in on the waveform and align those edits to the actual phonetic spikes if you want the smoothest possible results. Speaking of which, you must always double check the waveform after any mass deletion to ensure quality. Sometimes the cut falls right in the middle of a word, and CapCut places the pieces into 2 clips with the vocal badly split. Zoom into both sides of that cut, trim the first clip back a little, and extend the second clip to find where the word actually starts and ends. Listening back carefully as you tweak these points will absolutely save you from a choppy or awkward final audio track. If you accidentally delete something and immediately want it back, just click the struck through text in the transcript and hit restore. CapCut will put that cut segment right back into the timeline and restore the line in the transcript panel. But be mindful, restoring earlier edits can sometimes shift everything else on your timeline, which messes up your marker positions. That's why I always recommend editing from start to finish when possible, or rechecking those markers after any major restore operation. Now here's a big gotcha to watch out for. If you have multiple clips on the track and open the transcript without selecting one, CapCut transcribes everything. If you delete something in that multi-clip view, it disappears, but you may not see where it was, making restoration impossible unless you immediately hit undo. So when you're working with several clips, either transcribe each one individually or be prepared to retranscribe if you need to undo a deletion. Another multi-clip issue is that CapCut's transcript editor doesn't always play nicely with multiple tracks. Imagine your main narration is on one track and your background video is on another, and you need them to stay perfectly in sync. If you select the narration clip and edit its transcript, CapCut cuts the audio but leaves the other video track completely unaffected. That means you usually have to manually cut the B-roll or background clips to match any changes you made to the main narration. You might think turning on linkage or creating compound clips will fix this, but honestly, the behavior is inconsistent across projects. Sometimes a compound clip lets the transcript edits affect everything inside as expected, and sometimes it just won't cooperate. So you really have to test your workflow. Compound clip first or open the transcript first, depending on how your project decides to behave that day. Long story short, editing by transcript is incredibly powerful, but it can definitely be finicky at times. It has gotten much better over time. A lot of bugs have been fixed, but still expect occasional weirdness like failed restores or multi-track mismatches. If you enjoy editing by reading, like literally fixing sentences and letting the editor handle the cuts, this is a fantastic workflow for that. But if your main goal is to scale content, post frequently, and repurpose long videos into dozens of short, vertical clips, this manual process starts to feel slow and fragile. That's precisely where tools built specifically for creators at scale can be an absolute game changer for your output. Enter Vizard, not as a hard sell, but just as a practical, well-designed alternative for that specific task. Vizard's whole deal is automating the heavy lifting from one long video, right into dozens of social-ready clips. Instead of manually pruning transcripts and wrestling with those tricky multi-track issues, Vizard scans your footage and spits out ready-to-post shorts. It's not a magic wand that replaces all careful editing, but it's great when you want a fast way to generate dozens of clip candidates to review. There are three main reasons many creators lean towards something like Vizard once they start scaling their publishing efforts. First, auto-editing viral clips, which finds the parts likely to perform well, based on pacing, energy, and hooks. Second, auto-schedule, where you set your desired posting frequency and it queues content automatically, which saves huge calendar stress. And third, the content calendar, letting you organize, edit, move, and publish clips across all platforms from one central dashboard. When you compare that to CapCut's transcript edit, CapCut is excellent for those detailed, hands-on fixes where you want pixel-perfect control over syllables. But for volume, CapCut's transcript trimming is great for single-clip polishing, not for turning a huge recording into 20 shorts without a lot of manual oversight. Also, those multi-track quirks and the occasional unpredictability around restores just add friction to a high-volume workflow. Vizard, on the other hand, is fundamentally built for throughput and speed when repurposing is the main objective. It doesn't replace doing the final polish in a timeline if you need a perfect vocal edit, but it finds the likely viral bits instantly. It formats those clips for TikTok, Reels, or Shorts with captions and automated cropping, so you spend time picking winners, not hunting for them. The integrated content calendar and auto schedule mean you can set a cadence and have clips roll out, which is huge for multi-platform presence. A quick workflow I like is using CapCut's transcript editor when I need those surgical edits for the long-form YouTube version. Then I switch to Vizard for batch repurposing, upload the file, let it find 30 clip candidates, and then schedule the posts. That combo gives you total control exactly when you need it, and maximum scale when you simply want volume. Here are a few practical tips if you decide to stick with CapCut transcript editing for your fine-tuning. First, always zoom in on the waveform to align your cuts precisely with those phonetic spikes for clean audio. Second, utilize markers frequently to flag any tricky spots that need manual attention after the mass deletion runs. Third, try to edit chronologically from start to finish so that any restores you perform don't throw off your later marker positions. Fourth, test how compound clips behave on your system before you commit to a whole workflow that relies on that linkage. And fifth, if you undo large sections while working on multiple clips, just be prepared to retranscribe the whole thing to keep everything straight. Finally, if you are trying to scale your social media presence, definitely experiment with an automated clipping tool like Vizard. It won't make every single clip perfect, but it accelerates the discovery of strong moments and handles publishing headaches in ways timeline editors simply don't. So, edit-by-transcript is a real productivity booster for polishing those individual long-form clips, and CapCut has certainly come a long way. But for creators who demand volume and a predictable pipeline from long-form to social posts, pairing careful timeline work with automation works best. Try both workflows and see which part of the process you actually want to automate versus which part you need to control manually. Either way, once you get comfortable with transcript edits and waveform tweaks, your overall editing process will feel significantly faster. I hope this walkthrough on leveraging text editing helped speed up your workflow. Catch you in the next one.